start the record button. So this is going to focus a little more heavily on the different types of vertical gardening, less so on plants that you would use. There's a little bit of that in there, but this is going to be more on the different types of things that you can do in a vertical garden. And then at the very end of the presentation, I'll actually have some plans that you can download for some different types of vertical gardens. So there's all sorts of different things. Some of this will be maybe more professional grade, but you could certainly kind of take inspiration from what's there and consider trying that at home on a smaller scale. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share. And if I'm trying not to get distracted here, but I'm running the show myself. So let's see. Slideshow from the beginning. All right. So, all right. So why vertical gardens? I already kind of talked a little bit about that. Very useful when you don't have a whole lot of space if you're in an apartment or something like that. That's typically what we think of when we think of vertical gardens. But of course, you're going to find that there's a whole lot of other things that you can do. It can be, hydroponics. That's a good, use of a vertical space. They can be indoors and they can be outdoors. You can get very elaborate. And there's if you search by it on Google or Bing or one of those by vertical garden or wall garden or some of these other keywords, you would be shocked at what you see out there. I mean, there's a whole business model for having vertical gardens. And, they can totally replace a horizontal garden, which would be like a raised bed or an in garden or an in ground type bed or something like that. And sometimes in some cases, they're a whole lot easier to maintain. So we're going to talk, and I'm apologizing. I have a bad cold. So if I have to take a break and I go on mute and just kind of dive off camera, there's probably a reason for it. I'm going to try to tough through. I got my cough drops and my drinks. But unfortunately, the fall cold caught me early. So we're going to talk about the different types of vertical gardens. We're going to talk about the systems that they have out there. Those are going to be more of the professional systems. And then a little bit about plants, the types of plants, less about the particular species, although there'll be some mention of that, but more about the mode in which they work on a vertical garden. And then other vertical growing methods and ideas, and then maybe some resources at the end. Most of those resources are going to be how do you, if you want to, build some of this stuff yourself. So there are plans out on the internet, and I found some of the ones that I liked and created some QR codes to slap up there. And so this particular presentation it's being recorded, and it will show up on our Metro Master Gardener YouTube channel. So if you see some plans at the end that you really like and you didn't catch it quick enough, hopefully everybody knows how to use a QR code. You hover your phone over it, you get a little yellow pop-up, touch that, and it'll take you directly to the website. So if you miss it, don't stress about it, because the video will be posted there for you and you can just go straight to it. All right. Why vertical gardens? So lots of reasons. Aesthetics. I mean, you can get super elaborate, and you'll see some of that. They can become living walls and works of art. The Atlantic Botanical Garden does some of that with the big head that you see down there on the pool. They can be building protections. I've seen parking garages that have had green walls. They call them green veneers. And that can help protect and keep that area a little cooler, shield it from sun. In some cities, you'll see green walls. Property values. It's a marketable feature. So especially in an urban area where you see a lot of concrete, having green features can definitely increase the property value. Indoor air quality and outdoor air quality. So you can, if you have a living wall, obviously plants filter the air. So if you have a living wall, or you have, hydroponics, or you have kokedama or something else in your house that can help purify your air. Cutting electricity bills, energy savings, different ways of doing that, different modes. Certainly shielding, using that as a way to kind of shield and keep the heat down in a city is good. In your own yard, you can have a pergola and have vines across the top, and that makes it a much shadier and nicer place to sit underneath. Noise pollution, dampening that. Acoustics. So obviously it absorbs sound better than concrete, which would bounce the sound. So it can lessen the amount of noise pollution. LEED certified or LEED credits. So this is basically the green industry. And so sometimes you'll see a LEED certified building, and that means that it's very green friendly. So some of these designs can actually be LEED certified, which is interesting. So LEED certified, it costs a lot of money, but not only it's a return on investment initially, because you're going to have that beautiful green infrastructure, and that carries through on the property value. And there's a lot of people that pay big money for that. Reducing stress and enhancing well-being and health and wellness. I think most of us would rather, if you're going to do yoga like this lady here, probably do it in a park with a lot of really pretty trees, or green anything around us, versus maybe a basketball court or something like that. I would. And then of course sustainability, and just choosing to make things greener and happier. So the number one reason why vertical gardening, I think that kind of just goes beyond saying space savings. Most people, if you think about why, maybe, it's because you have a condo and you don't have a lot of space. Maybe you have a balcony, maybe you have a front porch or a back porch, and that's it. So, it could be something as simple as a couple of pots on your patio, but don't forget about the vertical space too. Too, here you can see they've just taken some rebar or hardware, cattle fencing, and done a section and then added some pots to it. So suddenly, using that upward space, you can put a lot more green stuff out there. Also easier to water. So I mentioned hydroponics, but you can also set up irrigation systems in here. So a lot of these systems, if you purchase them professionally, commercially, and you're not putting together your own, a lot of them come with irrigation systems. So it's understandable. Most people are going to think, oh, well, the water's going to run straight through it, but that's factored into it. Sorry. I'm trying hard. Sorry. Better sunlight. Um, so in a traditional garden, not all of your plants are going to receive the same amount of sunlight. So sometimes space is a premium. You've got taller plants, they're going to get more sun. You've got shorter plants, they're going to get less. Here, this is on a wall, pretty much everything's going to get the same amount of sunlight, and improved aesthetic. So some of us like a disorganized garden. Some people like a more planned garden and to have it look more professionally done. And sometimes you're looking for Um, excuse me. And sometimes you're looking for a more planned approach where you have particular living areas, hardscapes, maybe you want to shield something. So you can use these as a way to do that, to meet that goal. Added privacy, again, if you're in a really tight situation with neighbors nearby, you might look at doing something like this to kind of break that up so that you have a little something different to look at instead of your neighbors. Increased accessibility. So maybe you're, wheelchair bound, or you have limitations in your mobility. You instead of having a whole bunch of plants on the ground that you have to reach for and take care of that way, these can be taken care of, like I said, through irrigation. So you can enjoy your plants and you can reach them better, as long as you don't have a real tall one, obviously, but it can be taken care of maybe a little bit easier. And don't forget, you can actually grow things. So it's not just ornamentals. You can grow lettuce. I mentioned hydroponics. You can grow strawberries. I mean, there's a lot of different plants that you can grow in a hydroponic situation. So if you don't have a whole lot of space for a big garden, there are lots of crops that you can grow in a really compact vertical type situation. Okay, so now we're going to do the types of vertical gardening. So you're going to have living walls, which this is an example of a living wall. You'll have green veneers. So if you've ever seen a colleague of mine, Cindy, I think Cindy's on here. Hi, Cindy, had mentioned, or somebody mentioned Disney Springs, and they have a parking garage, and there's a green veneer that is over the parking garage, and that's partially to hide the parking garage. But you can also see that in parts of Atlanta. I've seen that. And in other larger cities, it's used to kind of hide or reduce the amount of concrete that's visible, to help reduce the heat signature. And then you can have indoor and outdoor. So living walls. So these are really neat, and you can use these as a design element inside or outside. The plants are rooted in a type of structural support, and you can make these super cheap. You can get yourself some pallets and you can build these, or in this case, it's a professional one that's done where it's a whole system. It's fastened to a wall, and the plants will get their water and nutrients inside that vertical support instead of from the ground. So usually there's going to be some type of irrigation system, something that's going to address that. If you make it yourself and you're just going the discount route with a pallet system, you're probably building little pockets in and then putting the plants in there, and you may just end up watering it. That obviously is better situated for an outdoor situation. A green veneer. Now, again, I mentioned what a green veneer was. This is an example of one. It's obviously not watertight, but it's going to do a great job of shading an area that might be really sunny. So here you can see they've got posts, and they've got some type of vine, looks like maybe wisteria, that's climbing up as some type of a framework mesh that they've got, and that's going on up the building. But in the meantime, it's doing a great job of making a very private area, cooling that area down, and it looks really pretty. It's very lush and very quiet, and I wouldn't mind having something like that at my house. So I have seen things in planters. I will say the Slow Pour Brewery has got some hops that grow like this. And they grow out of a planter. So, but typically it's going to be rooted in the soil and in the ground, and but sometimes there are separate planters. So indoor vertical gardens, you can of course have those as well. The one you see here is a living wall. It's a whole system, and there are companies that make these. You can also do them yourself. It's probably a little more difficult, but you can do that. And there are certain plants that are better suited to doing these indoor ones, and we'll talk a little bit more about those in a bit. But it can also be something like these kokedama. Uh, basically it's just a plant and you've got the root system, and then you surround it in like a clay and a moss, and then you use fishing line or some other type of something to wrap that up in a ball formation, and then that hangs. And they're really easy to water. You just basically pluck them off and you stick them in a bowl of water and you allow them to absorb that, set them off to the side, let them drip, and then hang them back up again. Obviously, you're not going to water it while it's there. That make a big mess. But this one's really interesting. You can see there's little orange trees. I thought that was kind of neat. Some orchids and stuff like that. But you can make a whole wall, almost like a curtain. Outdoor vertical gardens. Here we have some planters, and they've got some professionally and commercial green screens that they put up. So maybe you have condos and you share all sorts of patios. Well, you can use these as a separation between those patios to give yourself some privacy. And you can do that in a backyard too. If you've got nosy neighbors, you can, line a patio area with these and allow a vine to grow up and kind of take over and fill in, and it'll look really pretty. You can see these, the top picture there, the green veneer at the Norcross Senior Center. They actually have some of these that go around patio area. I think they have Confederate jasmine that's growing up on those. And then you see below it's a living wall. So there's some plants that are in the ground and then some on the wall. And it looks very lush and like a rainforest. I really like that look. So living wall systems. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The first one's going to be the woolly pocket. So what you see here, they're growing some tomatoes and some herbs and some other things. And you can get these super cheap off Amazon or off of any one number of sites. I mean, they're super cheap. Just understand that it's usually a felt, and by itself, it's hard to keep that watered. So it comes with little pockets. You'll put soil or a soilless mix in there, and then you'll put your plant in there. You have to keep it wet and watered because it will dry out really easily, especially if it's in a sunny area. So you have to keep that in mind. The best thing to do is if it's on some type of a structure, whether it be a pallet or wood or something like that, and then you have some type of drip irrigation or some other type of irrigation system. And then full flora felt, these are professional G-Sky plant systems, and then of course hydroponics. So the woolly pockets. So you can see here up in the corner what they look like when they don't have anything in them. And those are the felt kind. And then you can see down at the bottom here, this is one that includes the watering system with it, the irrigation. It's a professional system, and it's going to do a better job of keeping itself. It's a plastic, so it's going to do a better job of recirculating and making sure that it's watered. And so what you see on that living wall planter, that's probably more what's being used to make that is the plastic one that you see. That's an indoor wall, so it needs to be, a little more contained. But you can get as simple as you want with those little felt pockets, or you can get very elaborate and have a 2-story one with designs in it. There's all sorts. I mean, it's very interesting, and you'll see some of those pictures throughout. So this is flora felt. This is an actual system. It's the woolly pocket, and it can be a very small area, or you can make huge freeform shapes like you see here on this building. And so it comes with pre-assembled modular systems. You can see here how it works. And looks really neat. They've got several different types of products. So you could do something like this in your own house if you really wanted it to be professional and you didn't want to have to um, figure out how to irrigate and everything. You can buy the system all in one so that it's got the drip lines that are in there and it's making sure everything's watered and it's all good and you don't have to worry about it. And then you get the company support behind you. So this is a G-Sky plant system. So you can see this is some really elaborate stuff. They do make some very portable ones, I guess, smaller ones. You can see down there. They have a mobile version, comes with the grow lights, and you can move that around if you want to have inside walls, movable inside walls, green walls. And then they have some that are basically in place. They're not going to be moved, but it's fully contained in an automated system, and you don't have to really do anything to think about it, which is kind of nice. You also see that in this particular company, they'll design all of this for you. So they have landscape design folks that will sketch out the design, and then they use their products to place the design. So here you can see in the top left, you've got the basic wall, and then you've got a pro where you've got lots of interesting plants going into this. And you can see over here, it says exterior Versa wall. You can see the system. So they're individual little pockets. They've got the frame that it rests on and then the irrigation to take care of it. So this is, again, probably more of a commercial type situation, but you probably could use this mobile or the smart wall in a house situation. Stacked hydroponic systems. So these are not necessarily professional. You can make these at home. And I put a couple different types in here. So you have a DIY situation going on with the Coke bottles in the window. The setup here is that you have everything kind of in a rain chain type fashion. So if you water in the top one, it drips through to the bottom one. So you can grow all sorts of stuff in here. You could grow herbs, you could grow ornamentals, flowers, lettuce. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that you could grow in that DIY one. It's a really neat little situation. I think, I would, if I had more of a sunny window, I would probably try it. And then you have the nutrient film technique with this A-frame type situation. Here it looks like they're growing basil. And you can see below how that's set up. So you have some type of reservoir. You've got an air stone aerator, air pump, and it water pumps up, and then gravity kind of takes it down. So it'll move through, and the plants use the nutrients in the water, and then it drips back down into the reservoir and recirculates again. So there's all sorts of different variations. There's different looks. I mean, here's an A-frame, but you can get ones that fit on a wall, vertical, all sorts of different situations. Whatever fits the footprint, you can make one. All right, so green veneer systems. So these are going to be like green walls, like I was talking about, stuff that was covering up the parking garage. And the different types of systems here are going to be trellises, masonry and wood walls, green screens, Jacob wire. So the last two are actually commercial, but you can kind of co-opt some of that for your own if you're handy and you want to try to make your own designs with chicken wire or something else. Here you have just a simple trellis in a garden. So this works really well in a raised bed situation. I know quite a few of you are in some of the community gardens, and so you have a 4x8 bed, which doesn't give you a whole lot of room. And a lot of folks want to try to pack as much good stuff in there as possible. So you can actually do that if you go vertical. So you can see here they're growing cucumbers, it looks like, on a little A-frame wood trellis, and then you can grow some other stuff beneath that. Some people will go get not hardware cloth, cattle panels, and they'll make a big arch, and they'll grow vining vegetables on that, and then they can grow some stuff under it. and they really maximize the use of the space. And that's a good thing. You can get a lot of vegetables in a very small area by doing that. So trellising, there's all sorts of different styles of trellis. You can make your own, you can buy them, you can spend a lot of money. Um, Basically, that's going to be some type of vining or climbing plant that's going to go on that. And it's most effective with twining tendrils or climbing vines. So here you can see we probably got, not sure what's on that arched trellis, but maybe a ladybank's rose. Um, then you have a regular climbing rose. You've got some beans, it looks like, or something that's over there in the garden where they've made their own. They made a nice frame and then wove some sticks in there. It's very rustic looking, but it's very purposeful. I mean, it does a great job. And when that grows up, it'll also serve as a nice screen. You've got a more professional one where you've got some raised planters on a patio, and then once those flowers, maybe a clematis that grows through there and kind of fills that in and makes it look pretty. Get some flowering plants on there. This is green screen. So I mentioned the professional. This is actually a company, and so they will make systems that have allow vines to climb up. So it's a in this case, there's some three dimensionality to it. So you can see up there, they call that the tree system, I think, in the top almost left. And you get a vine that kind of grows up and over that platform. It's very strong. You can also see down there's a parking garage, a picture of a parking garage where they've got vines that are growing up, and it does a great job of camouflaging it. So, I mean, let's face it, parking garages aren't very nice to look at, and a big block of concrete, so they're usually hot. But this kind of buffers that a little bit. It's not quite as bad to look at. Neither is the one above that where you have the guy walking. It's hiding a big concrete wall. And then a fence. I mean, you want a nice secure fence. So here you actually have the structure for something green to grow up on it and hide that fence. This system is also LEED certified. So again, it's worth some big bucks. It's quite expensive, but if you own a business, it is worth investing in, and also increases the property value. Jacob wire, it's supposed to be Jacob wire. This is a company also. This is where I was saying earlier that you can take a little bit of liberty. So this is a system that you actually purchase. It has the anchor points, and then it also has the wire. And it can be used indoors and it can be used outdoors. Here you can see there are a couple of freeform trellises that have been created up top, and then you have a pergola, and you'll have some type of vine that grows up over the top of it and eventually shades it. And then in a city, you'll have the fence or a system that's been put up, and then some type of vine that hides the building behind it. And again, a garden where you have something growing up vertically. So you can kind of mimic this. If at home, if you like any of these looks, you can certainly buy anchors for a fence, and then the wire, and create your own. It's not too difficult to do that. Masonry and wood walls. So we don't always think about this in the South, but you'll sometimes see this in older parts of Atlanta. I left these here because it is a really pretty look. And so you can have either a wood wall, and you can see I've got somebody's created some, I would just call them like wooden trellises, and you leave gaps, and then the vining plants will grow up and over and through that fence, essentially, is kind of what it is. And you can see the bottom three over on the right side. That's kind of what that looks like. And then you have the masonry or the brick. Stone also works, because the plants, whatever plants you're putting on there, can actually have the adventitious roots that kind of grow into the masonry, concrete or brick, and attach themselves. Sometimes we'll see this with English ivy. I did not put that on here. It can get invasive. So, but you do see that in parts of Atlanta and other places. And other places it is not invasive, and so they can use it. But here I'm purposefully kind of leaving that out. We're not really talking about which types of plants. But just know that that shows up on a lot of these pictures just because it is used pretty regularly in other parts of the country and the world. All right, plants for vertical gardening. So we'll talk a little bit about the different types of plants. So annuals and perennials, native, naturalized, and invasive. I put containerized there because, yes, some people may opt to use more invasive plants like English ivy. They're not something I would necessarily put in the ground. I have seen bamboo used in a vertical garden type situation in a planter, and it does great as long as it's containerized and it's not allowed to get away. Tropical understory plants, and those can be for interior living walls, and succulents for exterior living walls, and then vines for green veneers. This is not an inclusive list by any means. There are so many other plants. This is just kind of a sampling. So annual plants, obviously some of you on here, experts, I don't need to tell you, but then there's some new folks. So an annual plant completes its life cycle from germination to the production of seed within 1 year, and then it'll die. We have summer annuals that germinate in the spring or early summer, and then they mature in fall in the same year. Winter annuals will germinate in the fall and mature in spring or summer of the next calendar year. And some weeds do that in our lawn too. So just kind of know that. Perennials, it's a plant that lives for more than 2 years. The term is used to kind of differentiate a plant from shorter lived annuals and biennials, which have a 2-year life cycle. Terms also used to distinguish plants with little or no woody growth from trees and shrubs, but trees and shrubs technically are perennials. Native plants, that's a plant that's part of nature that was developed hundreds or thousands of years in a particular region or ecosystem. And it's used mostly as a geographic qualifier, so like native to the southeast. So that would be like Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, that kind of thing. And only plants that are found in this country before European settlement are going to be considered native. A naturalized plant, that's a plant that was introduced with human help, either intentionally or accidentally, to a new place or new habitat where it wasn't previously found. But not all non-native plants are invasive. So some people think if they hear the word naturalized that that's a bad thing. It's not the case. Not all naturalized plants are invasives. And many non-native plants, when they're introduced in new places, can't reproduce for one reason or another without human help. And I put a couple of suggestions there, the Florida strangler fig and giant bearded fig, because we don't have the insect necessary there to do that. Invasives. So I'm not going to go much into invasives other than just a little education here. It's a species defined as non-native to that ecosystem and can grow very quickly and spread and disrupt other plant communities. Other plant communities or ecosystems. The introduction can cause or likely to cause economic or environmental harm. And we have different categories. Category 1, it's an exotic that's a serious problem. Extensively invading native plant communities, displacing native species. I think we would probably classify kudzu as one of those, and wisteria. Category 1 alert, an exotic plant, not yet a serious problem in Georgia's natural areas, but has become a potential serious problem. I might classify Mahonia in that. There's a few others that are out there. Maybe Japanese stiltgrass. Then we have category 2, it's a moderate problem in native areas and displacing. Category 3, minor problem in Georgia natural areas, not known to be a problem, but maybe in adjacent states. And then Category 4, exotic plant that's naturalized, but doesn't usually pose a problem, or is a potentially invasive plant. And there are several of those. I might put the autumn fern in that. I know there's some controversy there. You've got to have very specific conditions that it has to be under in order to make it invasive. It needs help. In other words, it's got to have very specific conditions. So it likely won't ever be a Category 1. All right, tropical understory plants for interior living walls. So these are most typically your house plants. You're going to find those most often. And the reason for that, so you have an understory layer in your rainforests. And so rainforests have strata or different layers and different plants that live in those layers. And this particular layer is between the canopy where there's a lot of sunlight and the forest floor. And so most of these plants are going to be perfectly happy in a really dim light situation. They just don't need a whole lot of light. That's zebra plants, ferns, philodendrons. Fir plants, they do really well in dimly lit situations. You got a monstera down there. They're all very well suited to a living wall if you want to do one of those. So just like you have an individual house plant, maybe your property is better suited to a really neat living interior wall that you look at and you're like, that's really huge. I need to do something big on there. Go big or go home. This would be a really good alternative, something neat to put up there that not many people are going to have. So think about it. Succulents for exterior living walls. So I like succulents. I have a filter on behind me, but if you could see the window that's behind me, I have multiple shelves and I have lots of succulents on them. I really like succulents. There are a lot of different plants. They're very interesting. They're pretty easy to take care of. I mean, you don't really have to give them a lot of care, and they're easy. They're simple. You can hang them in living walls in various arrangements. I've seen them in commercial situations. I've also seen them in people's homes. I see them on tables. They're great little plants. You can actually buy them as fake plants, and then you don't have to water them at all. But if you do want to water them, it doesn't take much. They're perfectly happy to be packed together like that, like you see in some of these pictures. And they do well in both hydroponics and in traditional soil. All right, vines for green veneers. So we'll talk a little bit about the modes, or how it works, how the vine is working, and then the types. So twining, tendrils, clinging, running vines, and then the types. Evergreens, deciduous, flowering, fruiting. So green veneer by mode, you've got twining vines. So that's going to be like honeysuckle. It's going to climb up by winding around supports. These vines are typically fast growing, and they can cover a trellis or an arbor or a wall screen pretty quickly. So if you've got some annoying neighbors that you don't want to see, and you don't want to wait until those trees grow that you planted, you can put something like this up, and that would grow pretty quick. You got tendril vines. These are vines like sweet peas, and they kind of, clematis is like this also. They twist around some of the supports, and then the main part of the stem will grow up while it has branches or little tendrils that twist around and attach to the supports to anchor themselves. You have clinging vines. It's going to be like English ivy, and they climb by aerial rootlets. These can grow without any support. They're providing their own support on masonry, wood, other surfaces. That's why it does very well here in Atlanta. You've seen it everywhere. I have it out in my yard. It'll grow up trees, so you have to be really careful about that and how you remove it. I usually tell people don't rip it off the tree. It'll pull the bark off of it. So just cut it cut the vine and allow it to die naturally. Running vines, some of these plants will use hooks to grab on to support to climb up, like blackberry. Others, like tomatoes, don't really hold on. They are very vining, so you have to kind of support them. That's why we have tomato cages, and you might need to tie them up. You can also weave them through the trellis for support. All right, now by type. So these are green veneers. So you've got evergreen and semi-evergreen vines. And these guys are, of course, just like a regular evergreen. They're going to retain their foliage throughout the year. They can be great problem solvers. So if you have that annoying neighbor and you have some type of a trellis that you want covered that's going to give you some more privacy, this is what you would look for. You would want an evergreen or semi-evergreen. They also have great winter color, so you might get kind of a pretty fall color, or just color in general. You might have a nice vivid green in the middle of winter. Spring and summer flowering, good food for birds and butterflies. I already talked about the masking structures and privacy. You can decorate arbors, trellises, fences, pergolas, lots of different uses. They can help prevent erosion on a slope. And they're very fast growing. Deciduous vines. So you've got a trumpet vine here and Virginia creeper. I know we have a lot of Virginia creeper. It is native. I find it pretty. I have a lot of it in my yard. It has a beautiful autumn color. It can tend to be kind of invasive. You have to be careful about where it goes, but it will fill in pretty quickly. So it's a good option if you're looking for something to kind of climb up a wall. It does really well on masonry or concrete, that kind of thing. And you'll get that pretty fall color. It can be, the sap can be a little bit, what's the word I'm like? It's not as bad as poison ivy, but it can cause a reaction. So you have to be careful. Trumpet vine can also get a little out of control. It's deciduous. It'll climb up a tree pretty quickly. And has these really pretty flowers. Hummingbirds love them. So it's got a lot of pluses. Again, good spring, summer flowers, food for birds and butterflies with trumpet vine, and decorating fences and arbors. Again, trumpet vine is native to the area, but just beware that it can become a little annoying. It'll send up shoots, runners, and it'll grow up the side of your house, and you don't want it to. So just be wary of where you plant it. Flowering vines. So these can be either evergreen or deciduous, and they can add a color pop in places. Here I've got the Akiba. I have one of these. It's very slow growing, but it is pretty. It's 5-leaf Akiba, also called the chocolate vine. I don't really notice the flowers on it very much, but the leaves are quite attractive. The vines coil nicely. I've got a pergola that it's growing up. It will grow up the trees nearby if you have them, so just beware. But it's very slow growing, so don't worry. It's not going to grow a foot like kudzu a day, and you need to cut it back multiple times a year. It's taken a long time in my case. Also, the passion flower vine, one of my favorites. Also a host plant for the Gulf fritillary, and is available in lots of different cultivars now, colors. It's a very attractive flower, also known as a maypop. You can find seeds. It's kind of hard to germinate by a seed, but you can find flower or the plants generally at native plant nurseries, and I've seen them other places too. And if you know somebody who has one, sometimes they're willing to part with one that's kind of an offshoot from the root system, because they'll spread that way too. Fruiting vines, if you've got minimal space and you want something that's going to produce, this is a good option. You've got muscadine. These are just a couple suggestions. Muscadine, and you also have a hardy kiwi. So I know a lot of folks probably have muscadines, and you may have them on just a regular old fencing system. That's typically how we see them. A lot of times in homesteads, people will plant muscadines, but think about growing it in a pergola system like you see here in this picture. I know my mom has a pergola, and she's got muscadines growing over the top of it. It makes for a nice shady area, and then the grapes will hang down underneath. Also think about a hardy kiwi. If you ever get out to Vines Park in Loganville, there is a hardy kiwi right there near the dam as you walk down the steps. And there's, if you go at the right time of year, you can actually find kiwis growing on that. There are a few other people that have figured that out, and they'll come and strip it clean. So you have to know kind of when those are ripe. But they taste like regular old kiwis that you get at a store. It's just hardy for our climate. All right, other vertical growing ideas. Hydroponics, I mentioned earlier. Sorry, I'm trying. Indoor and outdoor. And then planted pallet walls, DIY woolly pockets, like the systems I mentioned at first, and planter container walls and green cloaking. So I'm not really going into a lot of these. We'll just kind of talk about the pictures. Here you can see some tower gardens, hydroponics. You can see the DIY woolly pockets. That can be done with a pallet that you got free or cheap, and then you just staple landscape fabric into pockets, and then you can plant that. Set up a soaker hose or a drip irrigation system, and maybe put some 4x4s in the ground and screw that up, and boom, you've got a really super cheap, economical vertical garden. And you can grow anything you want. Here you see a bunch of succulents, but sky's the limit. You can grow food. You can put some strawberries in there, lettuce, all sorts of stuff. And then you've got some succulents growing out of the pallet down there. You've got another type of hydroponic system down below. And then you've got the tunnel down there, which is an example of my green cloaking. There you go. My mind was failing me. Where it's basically a tunnel, essentially. You're either using some type of a metal frame, or you've got some type of paneling system, and then the vine grows up over the top of it. All right, so let's build a vertical garden. So the first step in planning is going to be to determine your site or the wall for the plants. And you want to make sure that you're kind of positioning it in a really sunny location. So let's just say that you have a balcony and one side gets the sun and the other side doesn't. You're going to put it on the sunny side. So that's where all your plants are going to go. You're going to determine the area or the square footage that you want to cover. And if you're going to build a tower planter, then you want to figure out the height and the diameter of that and sketch it out. So, this is a cute little sketch below, but you can see they've got a couple of raised planters there to kind of separate off spaces so that it's more private. They've got a pergola. They've got some type of a raised screen, or they've either pruned or have some type of a tree in the far back. And they got a lot going on here. So, sketch it out. And you can look online now. There's some programs out there that are even free that you can kind of design these aspects and feel out what looks good for your yard. So things you need: wood, the iron frame. So that can be something like a bigger hardware cloth or a piece of cattle panel, a sheet of plastic, just a drop cloth, a jute cloth, or some type of burlap, not the artificial kind, but regular burlap, paint for the color, to paint the frame, screws, dowels, crampon irons, and some connection strips or corners, hardware to kind of connect everything together. Wood, don't go with non-treated if you're going to put it outside or in an area where it's going to get any rain. You probably want to select a pressure treated wood, or you don't even have to use wood. You can use some of the Trex decking types plastic products, or you can even try some of the hardy concrete type products. And then you need a drill, hammer, a screwdriver, and a saw. So you're going to make the frame, and you're using some of the little crampons to kind of tack down your metal. And then you're going to put your plastic up, and you're going to put your jute over that. You're going to wrap, put your jute on there, and then you're going to fix the frame and put that up against there like that. And then you're going to let your plant crawl up it. And you're like, that's way too simple, Lisa. I didn't catch all of that. I got you. You can scan this QR code and it will take you right to that page. And if you like that design, then you can build that very design right there based on the plans from this QR code. And if you're joining us now, don't stress out if you don't have enough time, because there's going to be several more. And I'm recording this, and this will go on the Metro Master Gardener YouTube channel. So you can catch that sometime tomorrow afternoon. And if you had a particular design that had a QR code, you can just go right to it and scan it and then get those plans for yourself. So how about some DIY plans? Now, this is not all inclusive. There are so many ideas out there that this is just a small sampling. But I did go out there and poke around and try to find some neat looking ones that I thought, that's kind of a cool design and it's not too complex. So, why not? We'll put that up there. So here you can see this is a series of shelves, and they've simply just cut a hole out, put some pots in there. Very simple, perfect for a sunny window. You can put herbs in there. You can put flowers in there, put succulents in there. It's cute. It's very cheap too. I've got something very similar to that in my window behind me. Maybe I'll show it at the end. It doesn't have pots. It's just a little shelf system that I put all my succulents on. Anyway, you can check that out here at this QR code. And here you have a little vertical garden. In this case, if any of you would come to the home show that we had in January, one of our master gardeners was kind enough to build a little vertical garden for us so we could have as a demo for a garden there. We didn't put really anything in it, but it was just to kind of showcase. This is a real popular one because it's super simple to build. You can even put a hinge on it and put some, like you would with a stepladder, so that it's freestanding. In this case, it just leans against the side of the house. Super simple. And you can put a plastic liner in it, put a pot in there, and you can stain it, you can paint it, all sorts of things. And then, your plants are happy. You want to build this, it's not too difficult. This QR code will take you there, and you can get the plans for this one. All right, this is a little more elaborate, but not too hard to do. This would be great for square foot gardening. It'd be great if you don't have much of a yard. You can put ornamentals here. You can put vegetables here, put strawberries. I mean, there's all sorts of things you could do. It's cute. And it works really well for trailing vegetables or fruits or anything like that, or just flowers if you want that, or a little pollinator garden. But if you like this one, this QR code will take you there. And then we have this one, which could be like a combo water garden / raised vertical garden. You could put a little water reservoir down there. You could put a few koi in there. You could even hook it up so that it's like kind of recirculating the water, and have a little drip irrigation system. So lots of things that you could do here. You could put more plants down there. But it's cute, and you can check this one out at this QR code. And here we have one where we have the soil put directly into the wood. The one prior had plastic pots or plastic liners. This one's a little more watertight or soil tight, if you will. And it's freestanding, so it's kind of like a bookshelf with cockeyed shelves. And you can put herbs, you put vegetables. Looks like this person's got some strawberries growing. It's got some herbs in there and some basil, some other stuff. I can't tell what they've got growing. It looks like something from seed down there, but they've got a little drip irrigation system. I mean, it's a nice little setup. So you could do this as a vegetable garden on your back deck or balcony if you don't have much space. And this one, which is attached to the wall, although you could build a base for it if you wanted to, and paint it or stain it. It looks like it's got some flowers in it. You got some basil, and you can check that out with this QR code. And we wouldn't be, doing the succulents. We don't want to forget them out. So here we have a cute little star, and this can be built as something to hang on the wall, or you can put it on a table and you can put your succulents in there. It's cute. Paint it, stain it, and you can check that one out with this QR code. This one would be like something you might have on a carport. So you can, again, put flowers. You can put some herbs there. It's like a little bit of a raised bed. So if you're dealing with some mobility issues, you could have several sets of these. And you can check those out with this QR code. And this one is a strawberry tower. So this is super simple, folks. It's just a PVC pipe, and they've drilled holes in it, put soil in there, and they got strawberries that are growing out the side. So it's not that pretty to look at, but it's super functional. And you can get the plans for that one here. And so that's basically it. So, and hey, look, I didn't talk past the time that I needed to. It's actually 6:59. Sometimes I talk a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to go ahead, and you can either type it in the chat box there, or what do we have here? How many people? Oh, we got 23 people. Okay, I was going to say you could talk, but probably easier to just go ahead and type it in the chat box. So if anybody has any questions, you can type it in the chat box. Nothing? Oh, Cindy, I love you. Cindy says that was great. I didn't have a coughing fit. For that, we should all be grateful. I thought I was going to have to leave a couple times. And again, it's going to be on, this has been recorded, so it'll go on the Metro Master Gardener YouTube channel tomorrow. So you can check all of those plans out. And if you want more information on any of those systems, I'm happy to give you the sources for them. And you can check that out. Yeah, thanks for this. Cold is a lingerer. I'll be glad when it's gone. I'm tired of it. It's worn out. It's welcome. All right. Oh yeah, the farmers markets. Yeah, this is a good farmers market topic. We've tried to get more houseplant information, but like some of this, like the Swanee Farmers Market, if you're involved in that one, there's a lot of condos in and around that area, and this is great information for them. Lots of good stuff here. So, but thanks everybody for coming, and I'll put well, you signed up, but I'll put my email address there. So if anybody has any questions, you can always reach out to me there. and I will be happy to, get you more information. Um, we can talk more about plants to put on any of these vertical structures, but there's a lot of free plans out there. I do want to stress that. A lot of free plans for this kind of stuff. Um, some of it you don't have to be an expert to build, but if you don't want to build, you can also buy. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can find for not very much money and kind of mold it to what you want. So get your creativity on and go out there and have fun. But anyway, if nobody else has any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and end it. But thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Bye.